The next speakers are going to be from here at Harvard, and it's Noah Delwiche, the associate managing editor of the Crimson,
Yes.
and Theodore Delwiche, who is the news executive for the Crimson.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Terrific. Thank you for having us. And first thing first, of course, we're twins. That's why our last name is similar. So we've been together for a while. Now we're on the Crimson together. So we're sort of old-fashioned. So Noah's going to pull up some articles. We don't have a PowerPoint. We're going to use just our voices. But what we're talking about today is our final club coverage at Harvard. And so what we're going to be focusing on is how this has taught us to be more proactive in our sort of reporting rather than reactive. So obviously we're all very busy students. We have social lives. We have classes that at least we have to nominally go to. And so we are going to talk about how we've launched investigative work and uncovered new things. Yeah, real quickly, for those who don't know what final clubs are, they are pretty similar to what was portrayed in The Social Network. All-male organizations, multi-million-dollar properties have produced several United States presidents, T.S. Eliot, many famous Bill Gates, many famous alumni. They have properties off campus and have no official affiliation with Harvard. So I wanted to start off with sort of how we first approached looking into final clubs, because this is a topic that really covers sexual assault, covers issues around alcohol, issues around exclusivity, administrative power, presidential power at the university. It really covers a lot of things, but how do you delve right into it? So the thing is that people within the final club world don't want to talk to you. They hate you. They don't like the Crimson at all. For a long time. We did very good coverage of the final clubs in the late 90s, but we hadn't really done a lot of good coverage in a decade and a half. So that was a closed book. Now the people not in the final club world, they hate the final clubs and they want to talk to you, but they often don't know what's going on. So we sort of had to think, how do we get into this world when we have two different camps? And the camp that wants to talk to us, is very rhetorically adamant, but there are not a lot of facts behind it. So what I did was I started looking through the tax records of the final clubs, and I realized that there are graduate boards on these final clubs, and through the tax records I can find all of the graduate board leaders and liaisons. And so I created a Google Doc spreadsheet with hundreds of graduate board leaders, and went with that, just started reaching out, flooding these old men's inboxes and cell phones. And that started with our first piece, Grabbed But Not Gone. So this was a way to sort of delve right into the topic by talking to the graduate boards of the final clubs and first sort of introducing the Crimson into this world of final club reporting again and building trust within this world. And so what came next was we began to hear rumors starting about a year and a half ago that the new dean of Harvard College, who's been here for about 2 years now, was cracking down on these organizations and trying to pressure them to admit women. It's unclear what power he had. Final clubs disaffiliated from the university in 1984 when administrators told them either admit women or cut ties, and they cut ties, and they've enjoyed that status for, more than 2 decades. So we started hearing these rumors, and we wanted to get into real factual-based journalism of what's going on. So what we focused on was real document-based, hard documents from the sources, usually confidential, figuring out what the final clubs are doing and how they are reacting to this pressure. So, let me show you. So we found out, we started publishing one of the final clubs for the first time, breaking over 100 years of tradition, accepted women. It was a very big deal. We wrote about that. And then a second final club as well the cards started to fall. A second final club admitted women. And that was a big story as well. But the same day that we published that story in print, we had a side story of what exactly the leaders of this final club, how they framed their decision to admit women. So we obtained the confidential internal correspondence of how they described this decision. And the headline of our article was how they felt Harvard had forced their hand when it came to admitting women. Yeah, and so if there's anything that people at Harvard I think know us for, is that they can always find an article with confidential banners all around the documents in it. So once we started first getting the first article out, a lot of people I think were very open to the idea that the Crimson was going to do investigative work and was going to really delve into this and dedicate a lot of time to it, rather than just sort of falling on one of these sides of the camp to hate or to love them.
Yeah. And so we don't bog you down with too much context, but so what happened was, two final clubs admit women. Seems all fine and dandy. A lot of them were getting pressured behind the scenes, and then one of the clubs that went co-ed suddenly shut down, and we wrote a story on that, and the Globe had a really quick story about that as well. There was this party that had happened that involved nudity and shark costumes. And that's all the Globe mentioned, but we wanted to figure out what really happened behind this. So what we did was, using hundreds of internal correspondences from this final club, showed how Harvard administrators pressuring this club to go co-ed had created this deep rift between the undergraduates and the graduates, particularly the graduates. An opposition party had formed within the graduate community, sort of a rogue party calling themselves the Friends of the Fox Club. They called a special meeting. They tried to shut down the women initiation into the event. And so we sort of dug deeper into what is going on in this final club that admitted women for the first time and now is having a raging dispute over power, control, and tradition.
Yeah, so a story like that took a lot of time for us. It took probably over a year of building relationships with people. This was a very slow process, and I think it really taught us a lot of things about investigative journalism. It's not common that someone just will open up to you and will forward you hundreds of emails about their organization, some of them very embarrassing. But a lot of it I think was interpersonal work that I didn't expect a lot to have to do. So we often just interview people. We sort of go out with a daily story and sort of that's it. Getting stories like these, it took weeks of just coffee chats, me talking with people. Oh, your daughter's getting married. That's great. Tell me more. Hour-long conversations. How's your church doing? That's great. You played pool yesterday. Tell me more. Did you win? There's just a lot of schmoozing and some sense involved.
And so one of the issues we've run into is for one of the final clubs in particular, the one that has having this huge dispute over going co-ed. We had a lot of information about them, but there are 8 male final clubs, there are 5 female final clubs. We wanted to make sure we were getting the perspectives of all of them, but none of the individuals involved would talk. So we wanted to continue our very document-based, strict, hard, factual information. We got another final club. We obtained a letter from a graduate laying out their legal strategy against Harvard if Harvard forces them to admit women. And then over this past semester, we've developed a new reporter who is continuing to cover them. The college has meetings with these final club leaders, and we're beginning to develop source bases to figure out what happens in those meetings. We publish more confidential meeting materials and figuring out what the dean of this college is trying to do when it comes to co-ed and single-gender organizations.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think Noah and I think a lot of other writers on the Crimson, we really enjoyed how this sort of gives us a lens into a lot of conversation you see happening nationally around sexual assault, around alcohol, around fraternities. Look at Amherst that got rid of its Greek life. And these are happening at Harvard, and this was a world that we really hadn't looked into through these lenses for probably a decade and a half. And so it took a lot of time, a lot of sort of man hours, a lot of investigative work, a lot of schmoozing, like I said, and the fruits are there. People started to trust us more. Some people still don't, but we still have the confidential documents online. And we encourage you all, to read in, and if you have any questions about how to launch, long-term investigations like these and how to really build those connections with people, we'd certainly, talk afterwards with you. Thank you.
Thank you.